I remember the day when I first played Sonic CD. It was thanks to the Sonic Gems collection. I could not figure out why the game was called Sonic CD. That was until I eventually looked it up and found out that it was originally released for a system known as the Sega Cd. Now what is a Sega Cd, you may ask? It was a system that was released in the 90s that had better quality graphics and better sounding soundtracks for their games. Unfortunately, from what I've heard though, the system apparently didn't do very well, and Sonic CD was considered the only playable game for the system. Good thing I'm not buying a Sega CD anytime soon. Anyway, let's talk about the story. Well, to be honest, it doesn't really need much explanation. It's just Dr. Robotnik trying to take over the world again, and Sonic of course has to stop him. Sonic CD introduced two more stable characters of the franchise. Amy Rose, a character who constantly chases around Sonic because she's madly in love with him, and there's Metal Sonic, who is one of the most recognizable villains of all time. He was made by Dr. Robotnik to rival against Sonic the Hedgehog, and that race sequence you have with him was one of the most memorable moments of the game for me. But enough of that, let's take a look at the gameplay. Sonic CD controls about just as well as you would expect for a Sonic game at this point, and most of Sonic's moves are here and accounted for. However, Sonic gets a new move in this game called the Super Peel-Out move. If you press up and A at the same time, Sonic will begin to do a figure 8, and if you let go, Sonic will go extremely fast. Unfortunately, this was the only game in the franchise where this move actually appears. I heard it was in a few Game Gear games, but I've never even heard about them, so I'm not really going to go into them at this point. In the game, you'll see a sign that either reads past or future. If you go right past it, Sonic will begin to sparkle up. If you go at maximum speed while doing this, Sonic will begin to travel through time. You can either go to the future, which is a bit empty and not really that great to look at, or the past, where everything is peaceful. In the past, you'll find these robot generators. If you can destroy all of them, not only does it immediately wipe out all of the enemies in the area, but it also allows you to create a good future. You may think your true goal in this game is just to beat it, but no. If you want to get a true 100% ending, you have to get good futures for each zone. But some of you may be like, oh, but that's too hard to do. Well, you could be right, but thankfully there's another option you can do. Once again, if you collect 50 rings and jump into a giant ring, Sonic will be taken to a special stage, and wait, what am I even looking at right now? Now, these special stages aren't bad, but I honestly had a bit of a tough time with the controls. Maybe it's because the frame rate's really low, but I could just never get used to these special stages. Also, what the hell's up with those backgrounds? Are you still high from the last video, or are you just looking at this right now? No, you're not gonna answer? Okay. But anyway, if you beat the special stages, you'll be rewarded with a time stone, and if you get all of them, it automatically creates good futures for all of the zones. Unfortunately, the Chaos Emeralds are not in this game, so Sonic will not be able to transform into Super Sonic. The graphics in this game are hugely improved over the first two games, and it really does show that the Sega CD is capable of showing such beautiful graphics. Sure, many people might not think they look good at today's time, but back then, these graphics must have been considered really good. Now let's get to the soundtrack, because this is a bit of an odd one to talk about. You see, Sonic CD was actually split into two different soundtracks, one for the US and one for Japan. The soundtrack definitely shows how capable the Sega CD is of playing higher quality music, but if I'm going to be honest, the US soundtrack is honestly not that good in my opinion. I mean, some tracks definitely sound fine, but a lot of the tracks just don't really stick with me, and some can actually sound really uncomfortable. Listen to this one. However, with that said, the Japanese soundtrack is fantastic. It's one of the best Sonic soundtracks I have ever heard in my life. Each track is memorable to listen to, and there's not a single one that disturbs me. So, most of what Sonic 2 seems to be here and accounted for. Is there anything else about Sonic CD I don't really like? Well, to be perfectly honest, while I do think the graphics are really good, the level design? Holy crap. The level design with the combination of the beautiful graphics really can give me a migraine. These levels are really fast, and if it's not that, some of the levels also have, well, personally, not very good level designs. The level design is just way too over the top, and combined with the beautiful graphics, it can either give you a massive headache or a really bad migraine. I really recommend playing this game if you're in a lighter area. Please don't play this game in the dark. Please. I've fallen for that mistake so many times. So in the end, is Sonic CD a bad game? No, it's not a bad game. It's a good game. But comparing it to other Sonic games, it's honestly not that great. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad game. It's still a good game in its own right, but I'd rather play other Sonic games than this one. If I were to recommend Sonic CD though, I'd recommend the PS3 version. It was made by a person named Christian Whitehead who improved many of the things that Sonic CD bothered me about, including the frame rate in the special stages and some of the collision detection issues. This is the version I would recommend to many people, but still, if you want to give the original version a shot, go ahead. You might enjoy the game more than I did, but for me, I think I'll just stick with this version. If I had to give this game a score, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. I know a lot of people are probably not going to agree with me on this one, but that's just how I feel. And hey, if you love this game more than I do, that's awesome. Go ahead and keep on loving it. I'm sure many people do. Well, that's it for Sonic CD. I know what's coming up next. Boy, am I excited for it. Join me in the next video when I take a look at Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles. Thank you for watching, and take care.